The best meals I've ever eaten weren't created in five-star restaurants. In fact, they were made by people who've never even heard of a Michelin star. These folks didn't study at the Cordon Bleu or graduate from the Academy of Pastel Cardigans, complete with a PhD in saccharine stuffiness. Nope, the best meals I've ever eaten were created by the not-so-humble women in my family, and the grand chef was Grandma. On the menu, Nonna Teresa's lasagna bianga, stuffed full of pulled chicken meat, melted mozzarella, drenched in a homemade brodo. Then we're making Nonna Carmela's fettuccine, smothered in a rich tomato sugo, loaded with spicy Italian sausage and tender brisket. For dessert, Tiramisu cupcakes, topped with espresso mascarpone frosting and little chocolatey bits. The spice agent reports on fair trade coffee beans.
Ever since Occupy Wallach Street in Ra'anana, I refuse to support free trade and greedy capitalism.
Fair trade.
Freedom!
Panos talks brisket.
When life is tough, bro, remember, brisket is tougher.
Hans teaches us how to crochet.
Like a man.
Uh-oh. You're in the weird part of the cable sphere again. You're watching Nadia G's Bitchin' Kitchen. Oh, yes. My grandmas were funny-looking ladies. It's kind of like when the Nonna mold was created, someone forgot to carve it. These tank-like women, they were built for another time, a time where you pressed olive oil with your bare hands, ground semolina with your teeth, and walked 679 miles to the water well every day with two babies permanently latched onto your chest. Hey, they don't make them like that anymore, huh? Thank goodness. I have enough trouble shopping for jeans as is. But these ladies could cook. That's why today I'm gonna share my Nonna's secrets. Well, minus the tax evasion there. Let's get cooking. We'll start by making Nonna Teresa's lasagna bianga. First things first, we're gonna make a simple brodo. Chicken broth. Heat a large pot on medium-high. Woo! Now schiaff in 1 organic chicken cut into chunks. What you want to do is just cover it with water. See, that's the trick when you're making stock, whether you're using chicken, fish, whatever kind of meat. You only just want to barely cover the meat with water. This guarantees the perfect flavor to liquid ratio. Add a big handful of fresh parsley. Bring it to a boil, then turn the heat down to medium-low and let it simmer for 3 hours. Every half hour or so, skim the cack. All the cack. Pasta time! We're making homemade pasta al uova, egg pasta, because that's how my Nonna used to do it. Plus, you all keep harassing me for a homemade pasta recipe. No, wait. That's candid bikini photos. Never mind. In a food processor, throw in 2 cups of sifted, unbleached flour. And 4 eggs. And pulse until it comes together. Dust a clean work surface with flour. Get some on your hands. We're gonna knead this egg dough. Knead it like a baby cat. Now, kneading pasta dough isn't rocket surgery. You just keep giving it a beating until the gluten develops. Check it out. Punch it, stretch it, pile drive it, whatever it takes till it's nice and silky. Takes a few minutes. Wrap this sucker in plastic so it doesn't get all crusty. When we get back, we're gonna scoff this lasagna bianga, Panos is gonna report on brisket, and I'm gonna have to fend off the malocchia for making fun of my nonnas. But don't worry, I'm ready. Welcome back. Now, when most people think about grandmas, they usually envision tiny old ladies with delicate dragonfly wings. Not me. My grandma Nonna Teresa was rugged. I'm talking 5 o'clock shadow and everything. She used to love to gamble, crumb to the tarantella, but her favorite activity was killing chickens. She used to take immense pleasure in wringing their skinny necks, plucking out their feathers, gutting them. Now, some of you may think it sounds sadistic, but back then, killing chickens was normal. If you wanted to eat chicken, you had to kill one. So I don't think that she was a sadist. I think she was just hungry. I can hear some of my family members saying, Nonna Teresa, not a sadist. What about when she used to bite her kids? Again, hungry. Our pasta dough is rested. Now we're gonna roll it out the old school way, by hand. The suffering adds a je ne sais quoi to the texture. Flour the board, flour the dough, flour the rolling pin, and do it. Still thinner. Thinner still. Manuncha, can someone give me a freaking pasta machine? Hey, our pasta sheets are nice and thin. I would say about 1/16 of an inch. And what I've done, I've cut them into strips. This way they'll fit perfectly in my baking dish. About 13 inches long by 4 inches wide. Leave them alone for now, and we'll strain the broth. Get out all the chicken meat. Smells so good. I'm telling you, all you need is chicken and parsley, and it's amazing. Now, here I've got a strainer lined with cheesecloth. And we're gonna pour the broth into a clean pot. Season it with some salt and pepper to taste. Let's build this lasagna. First thing we're gonna do is pour in a little bit of broth, just so the lasagna doesn't stick. Add a layer of our pasta sheets. Big handful of mozzarella, big pinch of parmigian, and our primo chicken meat that we've off the chicken. Add a ladle full of broth and repeat with another layer of our pasta sheets. Another handful of mozzarella, parmigian, chicken meats. Another ladle full of brodo. Last layer of pasta. Top it off with our cheeses. Make sure the lasagna is all drenched in broth nice. And bake this baby at 350 for about 30-40 minutes until the cheese is golden and bubbling. Wow! Look at this gorgeous lasagna. The cheese all bubbling. It smells amazing. Got the crispy corners. I'm gonna cut myself a square. Ladle on a little bit of broth. Not too much, you don't want it to be too soupy. And buon appetito! Il brodo semplice, la pasta fatta a mano. Dei volte io sogno ai piccole gattine e dopo mi sveglio fresca. For our next dish, we're making Nonna Carmela's fettuccine smothered in sugo, loaded with tzatziki and tender brisket. Sugo is sauce, tzatziki is sausage, and translating's annoying, no? Onwards. Here I've got a sauce pot, heated on medium. Throw in 3 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. Add 2 cloves of smashed garlic and fry for a minute until golden. Here I've got 10 ounces of beef brisket cut into 2-inch cubes. We'll dredge them in flour. See, the flour and the fat from the brisket creates a bit of a roux, which is gonna thicken our sauce nicely. Brown these for a couple of minutes. While I get this going, here's Panos with more on brisket.
Thanks, Nads. Brisket is one of my favorite cuts of meat. It's cheap, got tons of real flavor, but like all ghetto flowers, it's tough. It takes a lot for it to submit. That's why you gotta cook it right. Lots of braising, patience, and time. The reason why it's so tough is because cattle don't have any collarbones. So the pectoral muscles, the brisket, support over 60% of its body weight. Imagine supporting more than half of your body weight with your pecs. Now you know how Jack Nicholson feels. Seriously, bro, the dude's got a rack, like double D's. To the point that even I get excited. It's not right.
Thanks for the visual, Panos. Throw in 1 minced onion and saute for 8 more minutes.
After the break, will Nadia ever satisfy her hunger? Will Hans speak intelligibly? Can an ancient tiramisu survive cupcakeification?
And we're back. For my Nonnas, food wasn't just a form of expression. It was their only form of expression. With 4 kids and a schmata sweatshop salary, back then immigrants didn't have time for frivolous things like talking or affection. Their only priority was to put food on the table. Now I know these days that kind of food-first parenting strategy may sound harsh, but it ain't my mom's generation that's all depressed because they didn't get no bedtime stories, no. And if you ask me, I'd take a big plate of homemade spaghetti any day over unconditional love. With extra parmigiana, though. Because that makes everything okay. Our beef, onions, and garlic smell amazing. We're gonna deglaze with 1/3 of a cup of good dry red wine. Let it reduce for about 30 to 45 seconds. Add 3 Italian sausages, halved, 1 tablespoon of tomato paste, and mix it in. Add 4 cups of San Marzano tomato puree, a cup of water, a big pinch of marjoram, raw sugar, sea salt, 1/8 of a teaspoon of freshly grated nutmeg, and some freshly cracked pepper. Give it a good stir, bring it to a boil. When it starts to boil, turn the heat down to medium-low and let it cook for 4 or 5 hours until the brisket is all tender and falling apart. With another batch of egg pasta dough, we're gonna make fettuccine. Now, my maternal grandmother, Nonna Carmela, used to cut her fettuccine by hand. Do you know how labor-intensive that is? So my mother, after seeing Nonna struggle for so many years, you know what she did? With her very first paycheck, she bought my Nonna a pasta machine. Now that taught me a thing or two about sacrifice, all right. So with my first paycheck, I bought Python stilettos. What? It's a sacrifice, no? Comfort for looks. Schiaff the fettuccine attachment on the pasta machine and pump it out. Separate the pasta a bit so it doesn't stick together and let it dry for about 15-20 minutes. Here's Hans with more on pasta.
Miss G, it's estimated that the average Italian eats over 60 pounds of pasta per person per year, while Americans only eat about 20 pounds. With all this talk about carbs making you fat, you'd think that Italians would be huge. But statistics show that only 8.6% of Italians are obese, while 30.5% of Americans suffer from obesity. Needless to say, it's not pasta that's making you fat, it's eating habits. Italians eat their biggest meal of the day at lunch. They also place a lot of importance on cooking from scratch. Italy has 2 native fast food restaurants. America, 152.
Thanks, Hans. Boil the fettuccine in salted water for 2 minutes until al dente. Make sure you move them around a bit so they don't stick together. We'll dump these in a bowl. And the very important next step is to mix it in with a bit of our sauce. This way the pasta absorbs all the flavor. Let's plate this dish. Grab some of this gorgeous fettuccine, add a sausage, brisket. We'll top it off with some freshly grated parmigiana, and scoff! Look at this perfect piece. Sausage, noodles, the delicate egg noodles smothered in that sugo that's been cooking for hours. The tomatoes are caramelized. The meat is so tender. If you haven't tried pasta like this, you haven't tried pasta at all. When we get back, we're gonna make some tiramisu cupcakes and have the biggest live studio audience giveaway in Bitchin' Kitchen history!
Audience giveaway?
Yeah, gonna spice it up. Welcome back. The one thing I love about grandmas is they always have some kind of candy in their purse. Another thing they always have is crumpled tissues that make you wonder, are these used? But then you have to take the tissue, trying not to look grossed out, because you don't want your Nonna to think that she's actually handing you a used tissue. Thanks, Nonna. Man, that's what I call stress. What was my point again? Oh yeah, tiramisu cupcakes with an espresso mascarpone frosting. Yamina. In a bowl, add half a cup of fresh hot espresso, a tablespoon of dark rum, and 2 tablespoons of fine raw sugar. Mix it up until the sugar dissolves, and then set it aside. Here's the spice agent with more on Fairtrade coffee.
Thank you, Nadia. And also a special shout out to Nonna G. Not only for the good cooking she do and she teach you, but also because if it wasn't for her, Yecheskel wouldn't have a job. Fairtrade coffee bean is my favorite for drinking coffee. And also making vintage leather Bible covers. The tourists, they love him. Plus, Fairtrade guarantees farmers safe working conditions, fair wages, and most important, no child labor. Kind of makes me wish I had Fairtrade when I was growing up in Ra'anana. When my grandmother, she gave me a job in goat mating at 6 years old. What does a child know about creating romantic setting for goats? It's too much for Yecheskel.
Thanks,
Yecheskel Mizrahi.
Okay, in a stand mixer, crack in 6 eggs that are at room temperature. Add a cup of fine raw sugar. Add a tablespoon of rum. And you want to mix this for 8 minutes at medium speed until it's tripled in volume. Puffed. Look at how gorgeous this is. Nice and fluffy. All right, here I got 1 cup of flour. I'm gonna throw in a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt. And what you wanna do is slowly sift in the flour and delicately fold. You sift, you fold. You sift, you fold. You sift.
Enough.
Fine! Fold in 1/3 of a cup of melted unsalted butter. Now here I've got some silicone cupcake molds. I'm gonna butter them, which is quite unusual, but what I'm looking for is some nice browning on these cupcakes, and the butter's gonna do it. Pour in the batter and leave about 1/3 of an inch at the top of the muffin mold, because these suckers expand a lot. Sakata. Bake at 350 in the middle rack for about 15-20 minutes until they're nice and golden and a toothpick comes out clean. While these bake, it's time for the biggest studio audience giveaway in the history of Bitchin! And the winner is Elias! Look under your seat, bro. Congratulations, Elias! As the old Italian saying goes, it's not the destination that matters, it's the journey. A cupcake isn't a cupcake without icing. Here I've got 2 cups of mascarpone. I'm gonna throw in 3/4 of a cup of icing sugar and 3 tablespoons of our espresso syrup. Whip until it's stiff, about a minute. Let's get our cupcakes out of the oven. They're so cute. We're gonna let them cool down a bit over here, about 10 minutes, and then we'll transfer them onto a wire rack to cool completely. Okay, pour on about 1 tablespoon of our espresso syrup. This is why I have a baking sheet underneath the rack, because if you don't, it's gonna make a bordel. Slather them with 1 tablespoon or 2 of our mascarpone icing. And top them off with a sprinkling of dark chocolate shavings. Salud! Oh, this tastes exactly like tiramisu. We've got the fluffy cupcake, our mascarpone, not too sweet, a hint of espresso in there. Today we made 3 Nonna-tastic recipes so epic, you can actually taste the guilt from not calling them more often. At the end of the day... Hello? Hey, Na! Ben, no, I wasn't making fun of Nonna. I was just making jokes. A metaphorical beard, ma. Everyone knows Nonna was clean shaven.